So I'm Chris Stevens, Managing Partner and CEO of Digital Frontier Partners, and today I'm pleased to be speaking with Stephen Ryan, who's the Chief Digital Officer of a very interesting organisation, the Greater Metropolitan Cemeteries Trust here in Victoria. Digital Frontier Partners recently partnered with Stephen to create an enterprise AI solution that addresses quite an interesting use case within the business and to showcase the power of modern AI and really adding value to a business. So I'm really pleased to be talking to Stephen today to get his views. So maybe I'll kick off with the question, Stephen, if I can. Can you give us just a brief background on GMCT and what led to the organisation wanting to explore an enterprise AI solution?
Yeah, sure. Good morning, Chris. I'll start with a bit of context. So GMCT is what we refer to as a Class A cemetery trust. We're responsible for 19 active cemeteries across Melbourne's west, north and out to the eastern suburbs. Our oldest cemetery is about 170 years old, and we're starting development of a new cemetery out near Melton, which will be Melbourne's largest cemetery for over 100 years. So there's a real diversity now. I think we've got about 1,000 hectares of land across Melbourne. So from a land management, that's a fairly large portfolio. There's 5 Class A cemetery trusts in Victoria, which are responsible for 63 cemeteries, and they're all governed. We are all governed by the Cemeteries and Crematoria Act. There's another 481 Class B cemetery trusts, which are responsible for 565 cemeteries. With regard to the AI, our digital delivery master plan committed to investigating AI use cases. We expect that AI can deliver value to our operations and our service delivery, but the commitment to exploration was to work our way through hype and understand true value, try and work out where it really fits for us. I mentioned the Cemeteries and Crematoria Act, and one of the core responsibilities we have under the Act is to maintain accurate and accessible records of all interments in our cemeteries and maintain that data in perpetuity. A key data element in our records is what's referred to as the rights holder. So when someone's interred with us, whether that's a burial, a placement in a mausoleum, or placing cremated remains in an ashes niche, the family does not own that plot. The land remains owned by the Crown, but the family is the rights holder. And the cemetery can only act on the authorisation of the rights of internment holder. For instance, whether that's to erect a memorial, install a plaque, inter a second person, whatever that might be. If, for example, the rights holder passes away, the rights must be passed to another living person, and there can be multiple rights holders as well. So it's a pretty complex area and really specific rules to follow. We get a lot of transfer requests that are all serviced by a small team. So exploring Gen AI was an opportunity to assess the value of a solution that would help navigate that complex area and that person dependency area, and all the legislation and regulations that surround that, the Cemeteries and Crem Act, as well as probate and privacy laws. And so looking to find tools that can help us navigate that complexity was where the use case we were looking into.
Right, thank you for that, Stephen. I think anyone listening to this would be fascinated with the nature of the business, and as you then talked about with the legal considerations, probably something that most people wouldn't have awareness of, yet it's such a fundamental part of the equation to abide by and support people during a really critical needs time in their lives. Which then leads to, I think, another question, which is, as you went down this path, what were the key challenges that, say, your team faced during the planning and the proof of concept stage?
Probably the first one was finding the right documentation that could be loaded into an AI model in the first place, where people with strong, deep knowledge of the rights of internment transfer rules, the interpretation of the regulations, precedents, our policies and approaches to all of that. Finding those documented in FAQs, for example, was important to give that guidance around how we apply the rules. Next was then really training and testing the model, making sure the model was giving correct, accurate and comprehensive answers. We needed to give the model a range of questions and scenarios to test it. So one thing we did there was we were able to collect 40 questions received through our contact center in a week. grabbed those questions and loaded them into the model. That gave us real life scenarios and the real life complexities that are in some of those queries that come from families and the public. To validate the model rather than just rely on the biases or other preferences of the tester. Then once we got through that, the last one was really assessing usability. The model was giving good answers. It was giving comprehensive answers, but in some instances they were very long and very detailed and probably difficult for many people to be able to navigate. So we did some work then on the usability of the responses, which we achieved with that by adjusting the model to give a short response initially of the key points and then offering more detail if required. So, the response will give references as to where the information was referred to in giving the response, but allow that to then be expanded once the user was given that initial. So certainly getting the right info, testing and training, and then the usability was where our key aspects were.
So just my reflection listening to you on that, Stephen, is that the data gathering was a really important step, and your and your team's knowledge of what data was really important for the model to use, and the context of that obviously was a key thing to get right. And then the usability at the end of it to make sure you didn't just have an AI that was basically offering things that didn't quite fit the user's needs in the moment. So getting that tuning right sounded like it was a pretty important step.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you think of ultimately, and we're still working on the end use case, but if you're dealing with families across the table or over the phone, you want to be able to give relatively quick responses, not wade yourself through detail. So certainly getting that usability was critical to us.
Yeah, which is a great sort of lead into the next question I have, which is how did you ensure the regulatory compliance during the project? Given it's quite a complex regulatory regime you mentioned earlier, how did you ensure that you were compliant to that as you were going through these steps?
Yeah, well, certainly, along with many others in the public sector, we have some pretty strong data management compliance obligations. So critical for us, firstly, was data protection and data sovereignty as well, making sure that our data was not exposed to public environments and that it's stored on shore. So for us, a solution that was designed and architected, firstly, whilst there's a lot of power in the publicly available, AI tools, leveraging that power, but protecting our part of that. So a solution where data was stored in our Azure environment, that it's authenticated with our single sign-on and controlled and managed by us is not negotiable. And that's our own policies, but certainly complying in with the OVICs and those sorts of organisations from a government perspective as well. We get a lot of directive out of the Department of Government Services around AI usage, so complying in with that as well. And I think the way we've architected it, or it's been architected with the Azure environment, has ensured we've met those expectations.
Sounds like a very comprehensive approach to achieve the regulatory alignment pieces. Then if you think about now that you've got this enterprise AI solution working, what have been the most significant operational efficiencies or benefits or value outcomes that you have seen or expect to see going forward?
Yeah. Well, certainly, I mean, to date, the initial proof of concept work was really targeted around validating the technology, how it works and what it can do for us. So we've sort of ticked that box, I guess. We now understand the technology better and how it comes together and what information, how to train the model. I think the most valuable outcome for us will be a reduction in key person dependencies and removing those key person dependencies from the bottleneck in our customer service flow. As I said earlier, we've got a small team that services those requests, and we do get a large number of requests in any given week. So that removing that dependency and the associated bottleneck should lead to quicker action and resolution of ROI or rights of internment transfer requests. We also expect that through this solution, we'll get more consistent responses from our customer experience and client service teams to families by having a centralized and consistent repository of knowledge. So just that should be a safer way for us to work, I guess, in that sense. No, I expect our initial adoption will be more giving staff guidance. I think over time, as we build confidence, we may be able to move to a more staff direction operating model, and eventually to some level of customer service. Now, if we can expose this through the website, through a chatbot, or whatever, you can have a customer who understands the basics and is able to go and collect all that information and then come to us with the relevant information for an ROI transfer, rather than come to us and then told to go away and get a lot more information. So there's efficiencies in that for us, but there's a lot smoother experience for customers as well in managing those ROI transfers.
Yeah, that's great. You're clearly on a journey of, early stage value and, partly experimentation, but partly around a longer term vision that you and the team have about where the extended value comes from starting to leverage this further. So based on your experience having gone through all this, what advice would you give other government leaders who might be considering a similar journey with AI?
I guess certainly talk about what our experience and what's been working for us in this scenario, but definitely taking a small initial step with a target use case proof of concept was important. As I said earlier, this is giving us the opportunity to understand the technology better and separate hype from value. So that was a key first step of just getting something tangible and something really targeted that we could get our heads around individually and organisationally, because that's helped us build confidence in what's possible. It's also helps us understand what's feasible in our context. We are a unique industry, and the way we service customers and our values in that customer service are important. So understanding how tech can fit, and particularly relatively cutting edge tech, how that can fit and be consistent with our own values and our customer expectations as well. From this, we'll start to build an initial collection of ideas that we can develop into a roadmap. Even just with the team over the last couple of weeks working through, hey, we could look at this and we could look at that, whether it's navigating really detailed standard operating procedures. All our outdoor staff have a device in their hands. Does that give them the ability to interact? How we explore 170 years worth of records of data using natural language rather than data queries. So we're starting to build those ideas of use cases, what else is possible, and how that'll all support the safe and reliable delivery of our services. And I think we'll turn those into a roadmap of what that might be. But I think it was also recognising we couldn't do all this by ourselves. It's working with a solution partner that both complements and supplements our team. It's new technology, it's complex, it's evolving, but it was important to complement what we've got, both our internal capabilities with our people and our technologies as well. So working in the right way to do that and build that our own in-house capability over time, but working with a partner who can explore those technologies with us has been important too.
Right. Thanks so much, Stephen. That's been a great view of your vision and the initial achievement, I think, for something that's profoundly different from just what we would see as technology, but a way of doing things with a next generation of technological enablement. So I think it stands out as a real positive forward step for you and the organisation. And also, thanks for giving us the opportunity as Digital Frontier Partners to truly partner with you to achieve this. So we're very pleased, similarly, that you're pleased, and look forward to where the future goes with your AI journey. So thanks again, Stephen.
Thanks, Chris. It's been fun, and it's exciting as to where we might be able to take it.